Good morning. This is the Asylum Answers Show. I'm Brian Manning. I want to answer your questions about winning asylum in America. So I used to be an asylum officer with the government, but now I'm an asylum lawyer. And as an asylum lawyer, my law firm, we help immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. Hello, good morning. Let me know in the chat where you're joining us from today. Love to see where you guys are at. Say hello. Let me know what city you're watching us from. And then you can start leaving your questions in the comments in the chat. But first, say hello. Let me know where you're joining us from today. Love to see where our community is at. Look, I wanted to tell you, before I get to your questions today, I wanted to tell you a little bit about some interesting information that we learned as a result of our lawsuits against the government. So we sue the government all the time. We file Mandamus lawsuits to move stalled asylum cases forward. When people have been waiting for their asylum interview for a long time, we sue the government in what's called a Mandamus lawsuit to force the USCIS to schedule our client's interview and give them a decision. And one of the things that we've learned from that is information about how their framework and their policies on processing cases, including how they prioritize scheduling the interviews. Because as part of a lawsuit, we get to do what's called discovery, where we ask them for certain information that's relevant to the lawsuit so we can fight the lawsuit. And we learned that recently, in a recent quarter, USCIS conducted 6,000 interviews. And the asylum backlog of people with an affirmative asylum case pending is over 1 million cases with USCIS. So if they do 6,000, if they actually conduct 6,000 interviews a quarter, that's 24,000 in a year. There's some cases that get closed out for various reasons without an interview. So let's say that's 25,000 cases that get disposed of basically in a year. It's going to take many, many, many years to get through that backlog of over 1 million affirmative asylum cases, right? So there's going to be a long, long wait for some people. Even though fewer people are coming to the United States, start recently within the last year, even before Trump, even because of some policies from the Biden administration, there were much fewer people coming to the United States than previously. So even though there's not as many new applications coming in as was the case over the last decade, it's still going to take a long time to work through that backlog. What that means is if your case has been waiting, if you've been waiting for several years for an interview, it may still be many more years before you get that interview. And in my opinion, the sooner you get your asylum interview, the sooner you're able to present your case and state your case, the better your chances for success. So I think it's in your interest to get your case handled as quickly as possible. How do you do that? The Mandamus lawsuit I was talking about a minute ago. If you've been waiting 5 years or more for your asylum interview, I really encourage you to talk with an asylum lawyer about the possibility of suing the government in a Mandamus lawsuit to move your asylum case forward. It's an extremely powerful tool. Our clients absolutely love it. In fact, pretty much every time I go live on YouTube, we've got a bunch of clients that like to jump on and talk about in the comments about how we did this for them, this Mandamus lawsuit to force their interview. And then we won their cases for them also, the underlying asylum case. So it's a powerful tool. I think if you wait more years, the chances for success are just going to go down and down. Look, lower and lower. I think that the asylum approval rate is going down with every passing month the Trump administration is in power. And so if you get unlucky and you get your interview called 2 or 3 years from now, at the end of the Trump administration, my gosh, it's going to be much, much harder to win at that time than it is right now, almost certainly. All right. So that's what I wanted to tell you, is that there's a big backlog of affirmative asylum cases pending, over 1 million. They're doing something like 24,000, closing out somewhere between 25 and maximum 30,000 cases a year. And that means it's going to be a very, very long time before they get through this backlog. And so if your case has been pending for several years, it might remain pending for several more years or many more years. Okay. So you should consider suing. If you haven't, if you're sick of being in limbo and you want to get a decision so that you can get certainty and confidence around your future, consider suing. Consider a Mandamus lawsuit to move your stalled asylum case forward. It's powerful. It works. Our clients love it because it works. That's what I wanted to say. But now I want to hear from you. What's up on TikTok? Hello, hello. Mo Salam, good morning. Abu Nura, good to see you here. Janet, hello. Salem, thank you for being here. Alvaro Benitez, good morning. What's the one question that you have to be careful how answering? Oh, there's lots of them. You got to be careful answering all of them. But that's a good question. Let me address it like this, Arturo. The question is this: what is the trick question that asylum officers almost always ask at the asylum interview? One that catches people off guard and that people often accidentally answer incorrectly or in a way that is damaging to their case, even though they're not trying to lie. Have you ever lied or misrepresented anything to an U.S. immigration official, whether in writing or verbally? What they're trying to get you on here is if you came to the U.S. on a visa, then you probably had a visa interview, or at the airport, you probably also talked with a Customs and Border Protection officer who said, what's the purpose of your visit here? And you probably said something like, oh, tourism, or going to visit family, or whatever. If you then in your asylum interview say, yeah, when I left my country, I was being persecuted, so I fled my country and I knew I had to get safe, so I went to the United States to apply for asylum. Well, you're saying, or at least making it sound like you knew at the time you left your country and that you entered the United States that you wanted to stay here permanently, that you intended to apply for asylum. And that looks to be inconsistent with what you probably said at your visa interview, or what you wrote on your application form, or what you probably told the visa officer, and what you might have told the CBP officer at the airport here, which is like, oh no, I'm just coming for a couple weeks for vacation. That looks to be like a lie. And so at your asylum interview, they ask you, have you ever lied or misrepresented anything to an immigration officer before, or in an immigration application with the United States? And you're like, nope, because you're not thinking about that. People are usually not thinking about that, visa interview or that encounter at the airport, or that visa application. They're thinking about like their asylum case, and they're thinking, no, I'm telling the truth. This is all true. I'm not lying. So I'm going to say, no, I've never lied. I'm telling the truth. And then the asylum officer at your asylum interview says, oh, but I see right here on my screen the notes from your visa interview, and you told the officer you were coming for 2 weeks for vacation. But you told me today that, that at a date before that visa interview, you had made up your mind that you had to flee. You were being persecuted. You had to flee to seek safety in America. So, when I asked you earlier today if you'd ever lied, you said no, but it turns out you had lied. So you lied today to me about never having lied in the past. And so here's the thing. It's not that first lie that gets you. The fact that someone lied to get a visa to come here, or that they lied at the airport about their intentions in entering the country, will not keep you from getting asylum. It's understandable. It's taken as something that like is excusable and understandable. That lie will not hurt you. But at your asylum interview, if you say, nope, I've never said anything even remotely misrepresented, misleading in my life about U.S. immigration matters, that is what gets you in trouble. And that's what they can use against you as an excuse, as a reason to deny your asylum case. So you need to then think carefully about your past interactions with the U.S. government and what you put in writing in your visa application form, what you said during your visa interview, and what you said at the U.S. airport. But look, sometimes people really did get their visa and intend to use it just for tourism at the time, but then after their visa interview, the bad things started happening, and so then they decided they had to flee. So it's not always the case that it's not like all people who are seeking asylum here who came on a visa have previously lied about their intentions to the U.S. government, but it's a pretty frequent scenario that they have. And so just think about what happened in your case and just be conscious of it and tell the truth. Always tell the truth. Honesty is the best policy. All right. But this is something that people accidentally give an answer to that looks like they're trying to lie when they're really not trying to lie, I believe, often. All right. So just be conscious of that. All right. Let's go to the questions. All right. Let's see. Over on TikTok, how are you guys doing? Good morning. Good morning. You're welcome, Alvaro. Alvaro, I have a TikTok and YouTube in Spanish. Asilo Aprobado is the name. Asilo Aprobado. if you speak Spanish. I don't know if you do. I just assumed that, but probably shouldn't have. All right. Good morning. Good morning. Nice. Abu Loai, good to see you. BB, good morning. Muhammad W, good morning, sir. Good morning to you, Muhammad. Thank you for the gift, Muhammad W. Very nice. How about the Hawaii court? I don't know. I don't know what the approval rate is at the Hawaii Immigration Court. You could Google that, though, and that's a pretty easy one to find. All right. Let's see what we got. Good morning over on TikTok. Who we got with us on TikTok today? Shala, good morning. Mirwais, good morning. Akash Sharma says, hello, sir. My case is pending with the New Orleans Asylum Office since December 2023. When can I expect my interview? I wouldn't expect it for probably a long time, to be honest with you. If you applied in 2023 and you haven't gotten it yet, it'll probably be several years. Once you get to 5 years waiting, we should talk about suing the government. My law firm, we're not doing mandamus lawsuits for people who've been waiting fewer than 5 years. For us, 5 is the minimum at which we're taking cases to sue. That's not to say that you 100% can't have success before that, but I think your chances increase significantly at 5 years. And right now, that's our threshold for taking mandamus lawsuits, is we'll only take a case where the person has been waiting 5 years or more for their interview. All right. But look, the question that this raises is this. The question is this. How long are you going to have to wait to get your asylum interview if you're applying right now? Now, look, everyone knows of people, in their communities or just asylum seekers in general who've been waiting for their asylum interview for many years, right? 4 years, 8 years, 12 years. And so you may assume, hey, if I apply for asylum now, then, I'm going to be waiting for several years to get that interview, right? And so I can just apply and not really have to think about it or worry about it for a long time. You would be understandable and reasonable in thinking that, but that's not exactly how it works. There's actually a very good chance that you're going to get your interview right away if you apply right now. Look, the reasons for this are complicated as to why it has changed, but the fact of the matter is many people who apply right now are getting their interview right away within 1 month or 2 months of applying. So if you're applying now, you got to be ready to go. I hope you have an asylum lawyer helping you, ready to put your case together in writing and to prepare you. That's the most important part, is the preparation, and hopefully to represent you as well during your interview. So you got to be ready to go. All right. Alrighty. Let's see what we got on TikTok. Or no, YouTube. Let's go to YouTube. Okay, so Barun says, I completed my asylum interview a week ago. My interview was very short, within less than 1.5 hours. Officer didn't give me a chance to speak freely and clearly in detail. He kept interrupting. Yeah, that's tough. Kept interrupting me and cut me off every time I tried to speak more than 1 or 2 sentences. He was a slow typer. He wants me to say word to word so that he can type accordingly. What are my chances of approval? Good question. The question is, first of all, I'm sorry, Varun, that you had a tough experience. Unfortunately, that's not uncommon. A lot of interviews are like that. But the question is this. What does it mean for your chances for success if you had your asylum interview and it didn't last very long, just like an hour and a half or something like that, and you couldn't get a word in? The officer just keeps interrupting you, cutting you off, saying, stop, wait. And, you can't get in more than a sentence or two at a time. So, look, what does that mean for your chances for success? It doesn't really mean anything. You can't really go based off of that and say, oh, I think that because of that, I think I have a good chance to win, or, oh, because of that, I'm definitely going to lose. You really cannot draw any conclusions from that. I mean, it's frustrating to be in that position. And, the more that you're able to sort of talk and express yourself more freely, I think, the better probably your chances for success. But look, the fact that, you're getting cut off a lot doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a negative decision. That's normal. It happens very frequently. A lot of officers do this where they just cut you off. You would benefit, for those of you who have not had your interview yet, you would benefit greatly from having a practice interview, a mock interview with an asylum lawyer where you practice this, where you go into it knowing what to expect and then being able to practice getting your story in and telling your story under these difficult circumstances. That's what we do with our clients. And the preparation that we do, especially the mock interview, the practice interview we do, is the most important aspect of the entire representation. It really helps our clients, give them the edge and the best possible chance to win their case. If you want to talk with us about getting our help with a mock interview, a practice interview for your asylum case, go to winasylum.com. Really, the first step to do that is you need to do a consultation with us first. We don't offer the mock consultation service to everyone. We need to do a consultation with you first and get to know you and get to understand your case and tell you whether we think we're in a position to support you. Because we don't do it for everyone. You have to qualify for it. And the way that we assess whether you qualify for the mock interview service is first we need to do a consultation with you, okay, with one of our asylum professionals. So you can schedule that consultation at winasylum.com, WINASYLUM.com. Again, that's WINASYLUM.com. We want to do a consultation with you to see if you qualify for the mock interview service. But look, if you need help otherwise in your asylum case, if you're just starting out and you're thinking about applying, or maybe you've applied, you don't have an interview scheduled, but you think, you know what, I could use some more help, do a consultation, okay? So call us right now to get this consultation scheduled, all right? You can call us at 713-909-0401. Again, that's 713-909-0401 to schedule a consultation. All right. What questions do you have? I want to know, what questions do you have about winning asylum in America? All right. Let's see. If I have a 2-year green card and I get divorced, can I get the 10-year green card? Will they send me back? You know, Mohammed, we don't handle marriage-based green card cases, so I'm not in a position to advise you. We just do asylum all day, every day. Like, the only other thing that we do besides asylum is we'll do a green card application, but only for asylees, for people who got asylum. We don't do green cards based on marriage. We don't do anything based on business. We are laser focused on asylum. Okay, that's what we do. Iftakhar says, very confusing situation about overstay issues, even applied within 1 year. Sir, would you please elaborate a bit? What's this about? Good question. The question is this. Are you at risk of losing your asylum case because you overstayed your visa? Look, let's say that you came on a tourist visa and when you came in, they stamped your passport or they gave you an electronic I-94 saying you have 6 months that you can stay, 6 months. You overstay. You stay more than 6 months. But you apply for asylum during your first year in the United States. Well, are you in trouble? Are you likely to lose your asylum case because you overstayed your visa? No. The fact that you technically didn't overstay your visa, you overstayed your allotted stay, your period of stay in the U.S. No, it's not going to hurt your asylum case. This is normal. It happens all the time. What really matters is just that you apply for asylum during your first year in the United States. The fact that you stayed longer than you were supposed to will not negatively affect the decision in your asylum case. So just focus on winning your case and you'll be all right. All right. Let's go let's see what's going on over here. Good morning. Akash says, my case is Christianity based. I'm from India. Which office is better for me? Arlington Asylum Office or New Orleans Asylum Office? Good question. The question is this. Which asylum office is more favorable for you to have your case heard? The New Orleans Asylum Office or the Arlington Asylum Office? Look, USCIS has not released public statistics about approval rates in several years. However, when they did last release them, I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, New Orleans had one of the higher approval rates. It was like second or third highest. However, it was based on a very small sample size. It was like a short period of time, and they had not had that many cases go through there because it's one of the smaller offices. And back at the time, it was actually pretty new as an asylum office. And so it's a small sample size. So honestly, I think it's probably more or less near the same in terms of which one has a better approval rate and which one is just overall more favorable. Arlington is usually near the higher end of the approval rate. It's one of my preferred asylum offices to have our clients go through. Remember, you can't just choose. It goes by where you live. So, but if you're deciding where to live or where to move to, and you're taking this is one of the factors, or maybe the factor that you're going to use to decide where to live, then sure, I do think it makes sense to try to go somewhere with a high approval rate if it's all the same to you. I mean, look, if it's all the same to you and you're willing to move anywhere, go to San Francisco. They usually have the highest approval rate in the country. But actually move there. Don't lie. Don't commit immigration fraud by using a fake address or someone else's address. But if you're actually willing to move, then yeah, do chase the highest approval rate. Do it. I think it's fine, and I recommend it, honestly. Right. Look, Akash, the fact that your case is based on Christianity, like, does that mean that, like, a religious-based claim as a Christian from India, does that mean that one of those two offices is better than another? No, not really. That doesn't tell me, oh, I think you should go to one versus the other. No. Okay. Akash says, I got a pending asylum case and I had a misdemeanor. I worked in a convenience store and I unfortunately sold cigarettes to a minor and I paid a fine and I got it expunged. Will that hurt the case? I think you'll be okay. I don't think that will keep you from getting asylum. Camel says, is it worth getting a psychological evaluation? I'm working with one of them. My kid. Okay. So the question, good question. The question is this. Should you get a psychological evaluation or like a letter from a mental health provider in support of your asylum case? So, if you've had some mental health challenges dealing with trauma that's related to what you endured in your country, the question is it helpful for your case if you get a letter about that or some kind of evaluation that says, that, yeah, you've suffered a lot and you continue to suffer because of what you've been through in your country? I would say this. I would say if you're already seeing a mental health professional, like a psychiatrist or psychologist, then yes, have them write an assessment or at least write a letter that explains what you're going through right now. And if they think they can link it to what you went through in your country, they should say that. But do you need to go out of your way if you haven't already seen someone? Go out of your way. I mean, look, I would say go out. Yes, to the extent that, like, if you want to actually get help. Yes, go see a therapist about it. I would say more than once, like actually get help that will be helpful to you, I think. But if you're not going to do that, and the question is, oh, should I just go pay for, one visit and just get an evaluation written? No, I don't think it's probably worth it. In most cases. But look, this is something that you should discuss with your asylum lawyer, to decide whether in your particular circumstances it might be worth it. Okay. And helpful enough to do it. That is what I think. If you want to talk with us, guys, if you think you might want help with your asylum case, go right now. You don't have to wait till this show is over. Go right now to winasylum.com. That's WINASYLUM.com. That's where you can schedule an asylum strategy session with one of our asylum professionals. We want to talk and get to know you and get to know your case in depth. Look, a lot of law firms will offer, like a 15-minute consultation or 20-minute consultation or something like that. I don't think that's adequate. We need to really understand your situation. We need to ask you a lot of questions. And it takes almost an hour. Our consultations last 50 minutes, up to 50 minutes, 50, almost an hour. Because we go deep. We really need to get to know you and your case to see if we think we're in a position to help you. And if we think that we are, we want to take the time to explain to you exactly how we're going to do that. Look, most lawyers, I think, will just tell you, oh yeah, don't worry about it. I think I can help you win your case. We'll take care of it. Don't worry. We'll do some things to help you. I got it. Don't worry. That's insufficient, because the reality is, based on my experience as a former asylum officer with the government and now seeing a lot of work of other lawyers now that I'm an asylum lawyer, most lawyers don't have a plan. Most lawyers don't have a strategy or a framework for how to build the strongest asylum case possible. And this is truly sad truth, is that most immigration lawyers do virtually nothing for their clients. They help them fill out the application form, and that's about it. We actually have a framework. We have a 3-step plan called our Asylum Action Plan that we use for our cases. And of course, it gets modulated and tweaked to account for your particular circumstances. But we're going to tell you in detail about what we're going to do to give you the best possible chance to win your case. Okay. So we do that in the context of an asylum strategy session. If you think you might want help, please go to winasylum.com right now. WINASYLUM.com. Winasylum.com. All right. Good morning, Afia. Alfafa says, good morning. Good morning. Glad you're with us. Adela, this is an interesting case. You said, would you take my case or help with the interview for the asylum case concerning homeschooling move from Sweden to USA, and also because of religious belief, illegal to homeschool in Sweden? This is tough. This is a tough case to win. It's not impossible. Let me approach it like this. The question is this: can you win asylum in the United States if you're coming from a very developed country, a wealthy, democratic country with great respect for human rights, like, say, Sweden? It's possible. It's not impossible. We've seen it. These people have won these cases from including places like Scandinavia. It's rare. It's very hard to win, but it's not impossible. This question in particular is about a religious-based case where the government won't allow homeschooling and the person wants to homeschool for religious reasons. It's tough. I would say it's not impossible to win. It's something that we should talk about in more detail so we can better understand exactly what's going on and, be in a better position to assess the viability of it and tell you whether I think there's a real chance or not. I would have to go pretty deep and we'd have to ask you a lot of questions. I can tell you, though, it's not impossible to win. I think this kind of case, people have won from countries like Sweden. And it definitely bears exploring further. We should talk. Go to winasylum.com, please. Schedule a consultation right now. Yeah. Interesting question. The question by MG is there a difference if actually, hold on. Before I address MG's question, I'm going to go back to Adela. Look, Adela, have you already applied for asylum, Adela? If you have not yet applied, we would need to talk a lot about your case in a consultation, and then we would decide whether we can take it or not. When someone has not yet applied for asylum, we have a little bit higher of a threshold. Like, if we think that there's virtually no chance for success, we won't take it. If you have not already applied, we won't. I just don't feel good about helping someone apply if I think there's virtually no chance for success. I don't feel good about taking thousands of dollars. We charge a lot, and I don't feel good about taking a bunch of money from you if I think we can not help you in a real meaningful way. However, if you've already applied, my threshold is lower because you've already raised your hand. You're already on the government's radar, and you have no choice but to just try to present the strongest case possible. So if you've already applied, I'm more likely to be able to take to be willing to take a case that I think is weaker. I'm not saying that your case is necessarily even weak, but I think it's going to be pretty tough to win this kind of case, but we would need to really talk with you in more detail to figure out how good of a chance I think you have. Okay. MG says, is there a difference if the person's from the Middle East, specifically the Gulf, compared to someone from Africa or South America, even if it's not something official? Good question. The question is this: are people from the Middle East treated differently in asylum cases than applicants from elsewhere, like, say, from Africa or South America? Applicants from the Middle East get a lot of scrutiny. There's a lot of concern about terrorism. After September 11th, there's this huge emphasis within the Department of Homeland Security, which was created after September 11th as an outgrowth of that there's a huge focus on terrorism, and there's a lot of people who just continue to think, oh, if someone's from the Middle East, they must be a terrorist. This very sort of simplistic and foolish way of thinking about things, this bias does persist, I believe. Yes. So yeah, you're going to get more questions about terrorism-related activity being from the Middle East. So there is a bias, I think, yes, against people from the Middle East. I think there's also a pretty big bias against people from Africa. more so than from South America. Both people from Africa and from the Middle East, I think, face a higher bar, more scrutiny and more prejudice against them, and unfair, sort of an unfair starting point where it's like you have to go make a higher showing than people from other parts of the country. Yep, I think so. Okay. All right. Abdel Kader says, "Good morning. I'd like to know when will be the scheduling of an asylum officer interview in the days after getting a receipt notice from the USCIS." Oh, you mean like, okay, gotcha. So the question is this: how soon after you get the receipt notice upon applying for asylum with USCIS, how soon after that can you expect to have your asylum interview? Well, look, if you're applying now, there's actually a decent chance, I would say even a pretty good chance, that you're going to get your interview very soon. Now, this is a surprise to a lot of people, right? Because everyone knows of people who've been waiting for many years for their interview. So when I tell them, like, look, if you're applying now, you got to be ready to go, because there's a good chance you're going to get your interview within a month or two after applying, they're surprised. Like, but my friends, who've applied for asylum, been waiting 8 years. Why would I get my interview now? It's complicated. It has to do with just scheduling priorities and the fact that not many people have been coming to the U.S. southern border for the last year. But that's how it is. And many people who are applying right now are getting their interview very quickly. So you got to be ready to go. I hope you have an asylum lawyer helping you to put your case together on paper and to prepare you. That's the most important part, is the preparation, the practice for the interview. But hopefully they're representing you in the interview as well. Okay. All right. Good morning. Good morning. For those of you who just recently joined us on the Asylum Answers show, I'm Brian Manning, and I am a former asylum officer with the government turned into an asylum lawyer. So I have a law firm. It's called Political Asylum Lawyers, and we help immigrants all over the country. We're based in Houston, Texas, but it doesn't really matter where we're based because we help people all over the country. We've got lots of clients in California, lots in New York, Florida, everywhere in between, Colorado, Georgia, all over. So no matter where you are, we may be able to help you. We help people all over the country. If you think you might want help with your asylum case, we should talk. You can schedule a consultation, we call an asylum strategy session, with one of our asylum professionals by going to this website, winasylum.com. Just type in your browser, winasylum.com, and hit enter, and that will take you to winasylum.com. That's where you can schedule a consultation right now, okay? Vitan says, I'm thinking of applying LGBT asylum, but not sure things here. I get it. Yeah. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm here on an M1 visa. If I apply for asylum, LGBT people here help me to get here from death, danger from family. If I apply, it will affect my visa renewal after 1 year complete. Yes, let me address it like this. The question is this: will applying for asylum affect your ability to renew your temporary visa, your non-immigrant visa, like, a tourist visa or an M1 visa or an F1 student visa? And also another related question is, will it affect your ability to get a new visa like this in the future? And the answer is it could, yeah. It's unlikely that applying for asylum will cause them to strip away your current visa, your M1, your F1, your tourist visa. But if you try to renew it, that we've seen sometimes that those do get denied because the person has applied for asylum. And the reason is, when you apply for asylum, you're basically telling the U.S. government, I want to stay here permanently. And that's inconsistent with what your intent is meant to be for a non-immigrant visa for most types of these temporary visas. So it probably will not be taken away from you, your current status, but will you be able to renew it? That's a question. That's a closer question. You might not. Will you be able to get another, if you leave the country and later you want to apply for a new tourist visa, a new M1 visa, will you be able to get it? Probably not. Honestly, applying for asylum does make it very difficult to get a non-immigrant visa, a new one in the future, from like back in your home country. It makes it very difficult. So you should not count on being able to get one in the future. In other words, what this means is if you want to stay here, if you think you might want to be permanently in the U.S., you shouldn't leave. You should not leave and think, oh, well, I'll just be able to come back on my tourist visa, or I'll be able to get a new tourist visa, because there's a good chance that you will not be able to, given that you've applied for asylum. Okay. Oof. Danny G says, I've waiting almost 10 years for my asylum interview. Why are others called in 1 to 2 months now? What decides that? Good question. I'm going to address this in two different ways. First of all, the question is this: what can you do if you've been waiting for your asylum interview for many years? In this person's case, 10 years. You should sue the government. This is an easy answer. Us lawyers, we like to give answers like, it depends, and try to be all nuanced and play both sides. But no, this one is straightforward. If you really want to give yourself the best possible chance for success, you should talk with an asylum lawyer right away about suing the government to force your interview. I believe in most cases, the longer that you wait for your interview, the lower your chances for success. I think your chances for success decrease with like every passing month, really, usually. At 10 years, you are in a very strong position to have success with a Mandamus lawsuit. It's a lawsuit that we file with the government. We sue the government. It's called a Mandamus lawsuit to force them to give you your interview and your decision. It's a powerful tool. It works really well. Our clients love it because it works. In your position, yeah, there's a very good chance of having success with this because you've been waiting for so very long. We should talk. I want to talk with you. Go to winasylum.com, please. Go to winasylum.com and schedule a consultation with one of our asylum professionals so we can talk with you in more detail about your situation, about your underlying asylum case, and tell you whether we think we can help with that. And also we'll tell you a lot more about this Mandamus lawsuit and how that might be able to benefit you and just how it works. We want to talk with you, okay? Go to winasylum.com. The second part of your question, or the other issue raised, was, okay, so yes, you've been waiting a long time. Why are some people called in months, or just a couple months? Well, so the question is this: why are some people, in fact, a lot of people, now getting their interviews within 1 or 2 months of applying, when a lot of people, in fact, almost a million, have been waiting a long time? There's lots of people who've been waiting for like 5 years, 8 years, 10 years for an interview. So why are those people still waiting years when people who apply now, many of them are getting the interview, boom, in 1 or 2 months? It's complicated, but it has to do with the fact that the asylum offices prioritize recently filed cases, and they try to schedule people for an interview as soon as they apply. If there's spots available, they do that. But they also have an internal rule that says they have to prioritize doing credible fear interviews instead of doing affirmative asylum interviews. They do credible fear interviews by telephone, usually, with people who are coming to the United States to the southern border and who want to seek asylum. In the past, for several years, there was a lot of people coming to the border, which means a lot of credible fear interviews, which was pulling asylum officers away from affirmative asylum interviews and making them just spend a lot of their time on credible fear interviews. That's why the backlog really, really grew, and that's why you've been waiting 10 years. But now, for the last 9 to 10, 11 months, there have not been many people coming to the border. So there's not many credible fear interviews happening, which means asylum officers are focused on their doing normal asylum interviews. But only a small percentage of the appointment slots are allocated to like people that have been waiting for several years. Rather, they're really focusing on people that are applying right now. So that's why people who apply now, there's a good chance of getting your interview. And if you've been waiting for several years, there's not really a good chance of getting your interview soon. And so if you've been waiting 5 or more years, I strongly suggest that you talk with an asylum lawyer about possibly suing the government in a Mandamus lawsuit to force your interview, because that works. Okay. All right. Is it possible to pay us overtime? Yeah, the question is this. So how do payments for attorney fees with my law firm work? Can you make sort of payments over time? And the answer is yes. We have payment plans, and it depends how it's structured depends on like your particular sort of case type. But we do an initial payment that will be a few $1,000s. It'll be between like $3,000 and $5,000 for the initial payment upfront to hire us. And then the rest of what you will need to pay us will be done over time. There's certain case types for which we have people pay a monthly payment each month for a certain amount of months. But then there's some case types where you don't make monthly payments after the initial payment. Instead, you make just like 2 more payments that are based on like phases of the case or based on sort of milestones or things happening in the case. But it won't be like you have to pay all 3 payments all like right within a couple months of each other. They will be over some time. So yeah, there's definitely payments over time. All right. Very nice. Thank you. Campbell says, thank you, Brian. I really appreciate your help and support. You're helping us by answering our questions here. Even if we don't hire you, I learned a lot from you. Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to say that, Campbell. Very nice of you. It's my pleasure. I love chatting with you guys. I love engaging with the community here of asylum seekers and people who are supporting them. This is good stuff. I appreciate the opportunity to do it. Rick Kahn says, what happens when the asylum officer after the interview says, come and get your result? Is it okay to go and get the results? Interesting question. Good question. The question is this. Is it okay and a good idea to actually go back to the asylum office to pick up your decision? Look, at the end of your asylum interview, the officer is going to tell you either you need to come back in 2 weeks to pick up the letter that is your decision in person, or alternatively, don't come back. We're going to send it to you in the mail. If they tell you come back in person, should you go back and pick it up? Or is it like a trap? Are they going to arrest you and try to deport you? As long as you don't have a criminal history, I think that the chances for arrest, detention, and anything bad happening at the moment of you going back to pick up your interview when they've told you to go back and pick it up are very, very low. Such that for almost everyone, I think it's safe and a good thing to go and pick up your decision when they tell you to come and pick up your decision. So yeah, unless you have a criminal history or some reason to believe that you're a target for arrest specifically, then I would go back to the asylum office to pick up your decision when they've asked you to do it. And by the way, I'm not advising, I'm not saying, I'm not giving an opinion or guidance on whether it ever would make sense to try to avoid that kind of contact with the authorities. I'm not addressing that scenario. I'm just telling you that, yeah, I think you should go pick up your interview decision. All right. Observator says, should I be worried about my next ICE check-in appointment next week? My individual hearings in January. Don't have any criminal records. I'll contact you for a consultation and eventually a mock interview. Okay, cool. Look, the question is this. Are you at risk of arrest when you have to go to a check-in appointment with ICE while your case is pending in immigration court? The answer is yeah, unfortunately. Anytime that you have contact with federal authorities, immigration authorities, including ICE, there's some risk for arrest. How high that risk is, how likely it is that you're going to have a problem like this depends on various factors. One of them is how long first of all, the most important one is whether you have a criminal record in the United States. If you've had problems with the law here, yeah, I would say there's a pretty high chance of arrest at this ICE check-in where they require you to come and check in every once in a while. If you don't have a criminal record, you've never had problems with the law here, if you've been here for if you came to the border without a visa and you've been here for less than 2 years, there's a fairly high chance, especially if you haven't yet had a master calendar hearing in immigration court. I think the risk is even higher. But if you've been here for more than 2 years and you've already got your individual hearing scheduled, the chances I think are pretty low. The risk is pretty low, but there is still some. Unfortunately, I can't tell you it's risk free. There is still some risk. So you got to be conscious of that and prepared for that. Okay. Right. And you said that you said eventually you'll contact us for a consultation, and eventually a mock interview. Look, or a mock hearing in this case. Yeah, we would love to do that, but look, why wait? Do it now. Contact us and schedule the consultation now. You said your hearing is in January. Look, ideally, we would like to have a few months to put all this case together and be ready to support you. Don't wait until October or November to call and do a consultation and then say, "Oh, I want to hire you for my full representation for the case in January." If you only want from us the mock hearing, like the preparation, but not to actually represent you, that's fine. You can do that, and you can call us in October, November, December, and we can do that. But if you want us to actually represent you in the case, meaning we enter an appearance with the court as your lawyers and we do the paperwork to represent, like the declaration, legal brief, evidence, country conditions information, and then we prepare you and then we represent you during your hearing. If you want that kind of the full representation, don't wait until the last minute. Do it now. Hire us now, or at least do a consultation to see if you want to hire us. But don't wait on that. All right. We need some time to put together the best case possible. Okay. What's the approval rate in Arlington USCIS office? I have an interview coming up. It's pretty high. I don't know what the actual number is, but Arlington is one of the higher sort of approval rates in the country. It's not as high as like San Francisco and Los Angeles, but it's usually among the higher tier of approval rates. So it's a pretty good office as far as that goes. Ryrie says, interview decision pending from pickup to be delivered by mail. Is that usually a good or a bad result? Good question. The question is this. What does it mean when the asylum officer tells you at your interview, okay, come back in 2 weeks to pick up your decision in person, like the letter that is your decision, you need to come back to the office in 2 weeks and pick it up. But then you get a phone call or a letter that says, oh, actually, wait, no, don't come in. We changed our minds. You don't need to come in for it. We're going to mail it to you. We'll send you your decision in the mail. Is that a good sign? A bad sign? What does that mean? Why does that happen? It's neither a good sign nor a bad sign. It almost certainly just means they just need more time to process your case. It takes a while. There's a lot of work that has to be done after an interview for an asylum officer to do what they have to do with the processing to finalize the decision and to prepare it. And very often they're just like, oh, wait, we're not going to have this one ready by that 2 week mark for the person to come pick it up. So we'll change it to a mail out instead of a pickup. That's usually why they do that. So it doesn't necessarily mean anything good or bad for your case. It's just a practical thing, logistical thing, right? Alrighty. Okay. Do I know, for laws of attraction, do I know whether the new bill on the 1929 registry update to 7 years will pass? I do not. I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't follow closely like proposals for immigration changes until they get like actually close to passing. It's not, I don't think there's any reason to really stay on top of it until it looks like something is actually close to passing, because there's so much that is floated as an idea or a proposal that doesn't come to pass, that it's not the best use of my time to go deep on those kinds of proposals. Pranati says, in India, my religious conversion and marriage can be annulled, and my husband could be jailed if we marry, though I wouldn't face jail myself. Are you asking whether there's your follow-up question. Could the inability to legally marry without endangering him still count as harm to me personally for asylum purposes? Yes, there is case law that actually says that the inability to marry, like not being allowed to marry who you want to marry, I mean, within certain bounds, can be persecution all by itself. So, that is something that may help your case, Pranati. Also, look, I don't know, you're talking right now just about jail, but I don't know if perhaps you also fear being harmed by people in the community if you were to get married, or just for being in a relationship with someone that they think you're not supposed to be in, or due to your religious conversion, or your religion. So that's something to think about too, is if you've had problems or if you fear being harmed by not just by being put in jail, but other kinds of harm, like from people in the community, is something that we do see a lot in India for these kinds of cases. So something to think about and talk with someone about, hopefully with us. Hopefully you'll go to winasylum.com right now and schedule this consultation. Winasylum.com. Okay, that's where you can go to schedule a consultation right now with an asylum professional. WINASYLUM.com. Winasylum.com. We want to talk, all right? We've got... interesting. Four Laws of Attraction says, have you ever talked about the reason for my shift from being an asylum lawyer or from an asylum officer to becoming an asylum lawyer? Good question. Pranati says they've just hired my law firm for their case. Oh, great. Glad to hear it, Pranati. We look forward to supporting you. But I was going to address this question from Four Laws of Attraction. So basically the question is this. So why did I decide to stop being an asylum officer with the USCIS Asylum Office and become an asylum lawyer? Look, I got tired of the pressure to deny people. I got tired of the anti-immigrant sentiment that I thought was just growing at the asylum office. Look, I was there. I started in August 2019 when President Trump had just been in office for a few months for his first term. And I could just sense that it was getting worse and worse in terms of there being more and more pressure to deny people, to not give their case a fair chance, but rather to push toward denying more and more people. I thought that was unfair. I thought that was unjust. And I decided, look, I want to advocate. I can do more good as an actual advocate and like trying to proactively support people than as a supposedly neutral arbiter, but in an environment where that wasn't really, it looked to me going to be feasible. So so I got out. So I decided to be an asylum lawyer instead of an asylum officer. But look, also I had always just thought that it would be fulfilling and interesting and cool to have my own law firm and to be able to help people in that way. And so that's another reason that I was excited to leave government and become an asylum lawyer with an asylum law firm. Yep, that's that. Saeed says, how many supporting documents and articles should I submit with my case if all of them are relevant? And there are a lot. Good question. The question is this: how much evidence and how much in the way of country conditions information should you submit with your asylum case or in support of your asylum case? Look, volume is not what you should be going for. You definitely don't want to submit stuff just because you think it looks good that the file is thick. That's not helpful at all. You only want to submit relevant stuff that actually is pertinent to your case and that helps the officer understand how you meet the asylum requirements. Now, if there's a lot of stuff like that, you don't need several documents that support the same thing. You don't need 5 different reports that show that yes, people like you in your country, who are the political opposition or sexual minorities or whatever, that they get persecuted. You don't need 25 different things saying that. You need a few that say it strongly, that say it well, that say it in a convincing way, in a powerful way. Look, you don't need to have a huge thick stack of stuff. First of all, it should only be relevant, but even to the extent that if you have a lot of directly relevant stuff, you don't need a huge file. The officer isn't going to read all that. And honestly, you really need a legal brief that lays the case out and cites to and uses selectively the country conditions information and quotes the relevant portions and helps contextualize them and explain them, because they're not just going to go through and just read even that much. They're not going to just go through and read 20 pages of a human rights report or something like that. You really need, in my opinion, to maximize the efficacy of it, you need a lawyer to be dealing with the evidence and the country conditions information in the context of a legal brief. Okay. Yana Shatruk says, does your company work with Ukrainians, Eastern Ukraine? Ну да, конечно. Раньше говорил по-русски, сейчас, к сожалению, нет. Украинский нет, к сожалению. Yana, we have Ukrainian clients. I spent a month in Ukraine on the Sea of Azov near Melitopol and a few days in Kiev. I love Ukraine. I thought it was great, and I've studied a few times in Russia. So I used to speak Russian, some Russian. I was never that fluent, but some. And I love Eastern Europe. We know Ukraine well, Yana. We know these cases well. So we'd love to hear from you. I'm especially passionate about helping people in Ukraine. So I would love to talk with you or have someone from my team talk with you. So Yana, go to winasylum.com, okay? WINASYLUM.com. Winasylum.com. Abdel Kader says, hi there, I applied for affirmative asylum and I got my receipt notice. Nice. And so looking forward to hearing from the asylum officer to schedule an interview. Nice. Yeah, get ready. It may be soon. It may be very soon. We should talk, Abdel Kader, if you think you might want help to strengthen your case. There's a lot that we can still do. Even though you already applied, there's a lot that we can still do to strengthen your case. But if you don't want or you can't maybe afford, sometimes people either don't have time or they don't want or they can't afford sort of the full representation where we help you with a lot, where we do the documents and the preparation and the representation. Another option is just hire us for the mock interview. We offer a standalone mock interview service where we do a 2-hour mock interview, and then a day or 2 or 3 later, we do a follow-up session, what we call a debrief session of 30 minutes. And this is the most important aspect of our representation with our clients. Our clients consistently tell us they think that the mock interview, was the most important part, the key to their success. The preparation is really more important than the documents, I promise you. The documents can help, but the preparation and how you do in the interview is what really matters the most, and the preparation for that is the key to a successful interview, okay? All right, that's it for today. Thank you for being with us. I'm Brian Manning. I used to be in I was interrupted. I was distracted by Dosi or Doki Lu says, Brian the Goat. I've never gotten that one before. Thank you. Before I close out, we got Sophia here again, singing our praises. I love when this happens. Sophia is on YouTube. It says, my interview was on July 1st. It went well. And even Rahman said, congratulations. I was informed of the result via email. When can I expect my result? Interview went really well. No errors. It should be soon. Yeah. Sophia's one of Sophia, probably soon, probably in the coming weeks. There's no guarantee it'll be in the coming weeks, but there's a pretty good chance it'll be in the coming weeks that you'll get that decision. All right. Like I was saying, I'm Brian Manning. If you want to schedule a consultation with one of our asylum professionals, please go to winasylum.com. It's WINASYLUM.com and schedule a consultation now. We want to talk with you. We want to see what's going on, see if we think we might be able to help you. If so, we're going to tell you exactly how we'll do that, the concrete steps that we'll take to give you the best possible chance of securing your future in America through asylum. I'm Brian Manning. It's a pleasure and honor to be with you here and to engage with the asylum seeker community. It's really an honor. Thank you. Until next time, I'm Brian Manning, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Have a great day, guys. Bye, YouTube.